Hey, this is Skip. I'm looking at some t.s.i I did about 2 years ago, and I guess it's had 2 growing seasons. So right here's some walnuts, and I'll kind of go through the bottoms without trying to make you dizzy. But basically, we freed these up and let them grow. They're gonna grow at about twice the rate. Really good quality bottoms, and I'll flip the camera around and I'll just take a quick walk through here. I got rid of a lot of the junk, the canopy or white oaks or the good quality stuff. I thinned it out and let them flourish, but you can see a wide open bottom that used to be wide open is really thick now. So I'll take a quick walk through and you can kind of look, and this used to be wide open, so it's good stuff. So here's some little walnuts, and as you can see there's some bigger pole-sized walnuts going up to the canopy, all free. Didn't used to be like that. Little guy, got to clean up this limb next to it. There's another one, and as you see, it's a jungle in here, and it didn't used to be. So really thick, and you can see taking out the junk trees, and some of them I let live. But anything messing with the canopy, we got rid of it. And you can see, you can't see, but maybe 30 yards in here. And you can see those big, healthy walnuts up there. And they are gonna be worth a fortune if you let them mature, which is my plan. Here's another little spot in the bottom. And this is where I kind of treated these 3 trees right here almost as one tree. They didn't totally crowd each other out. They are a little crowded, so they'll grow a little slower. But you can see I took out everything else, double girdled or hacked it off. Everything else in here I got rid of. So I left, these are the main 2 trees really, the good quality ones. And then you can see in the background all good quality walnuts that'll grow up really nice. And then everything else, elms, and a lot of ash in here, and it's all wiped out. And now it's thick, it's full of browse. Cut the vines off those walnuts. So what we're doing is increasing our timber value substantially. These will grow at twice the rate. I'll baby these. All the vines are gone. And some of these trees will be worth a lot of money someday. And some of them are actually pretty close. But you can see there's a maple that was competing. Some walnuts over here. It's just full of walnuts, which are probably my favorite tree, just because they're so valuable, and you can thin them out. Thin the junk out, and it's good for the deer to thin all the junk out and let all that sunlight hit the floor. And they grow pretty quick once they're released. You can see another big walnut right there. So that is a elm tree. Some of these I might need to re-kill, but most of them are pretty dead. So we can look across my bottom, not real far, but all the junk is pretty much taken out. And this is just the beginning of April, and you already see the forest floor full of green. So the browse in here becomes pretty incredible. And I actually had to come back and cut some trails through here that went by my tree stands. But this is not what I'm used to seeing in wide open forest, is head tall brush and browse and cover. So the deer bed here in like crazy, and then I get timber value down the road. And then as we get up the hill, we get into our upland timber, which is all oaks. And I got really lucky with this farm having such a great oak composition up here. I'll show you in a second. So here's an example of a pole-sized walnut surrounded by bitternut hickories. And all that canopy now. And here's a really nice walnut here. You can kind of see what we did. Took out all the junk. That bitternut hickory to me is about worthless. And these guys will be able to now flourish. You can see the bitternut hickory next to it if you know what you're looking at, and that's dead and dying. And that walnut canopy can start to really fill out. And same with that one right there. That's a walnut, that's a bitternut hickory, and that's dying. And then right here is a big, huge, beautiful walnut that's got a nice canopy, all freed up. And you can see the dead ones around it. So, come along nice after 2 years. A little bit of cleanup, but it's really nice. So what we're looking at now, so I went up the hill, and this is what we want for about a perfect upland transition. We start to get into the white oaks that need some thinning. A lot of hickories up here, bitternut, so this is an example of a walnut I freed up. Pretty much the full way to the top, and that goes probably 35 feet before we hit a limb. And as you see, it's got full canopy now, except for a little intrusion over there, but it's just a beautiful tree. Mixed in with some oaks, and there's some red oaks over there. So what we're doing is we got the importance on the white oak, the walnut, and then we get the red oaks freed up with some diversity, and let the red oaks go that are in really nice quality. Not a lot of examples from here, but you can see just how thick it gets. A ton of deer siding. So here's an example of a cut I did last year, so one growing season. And over on that ridge is a mix of walnuts and red oak, primarily. See, there's a white oak in the background. And then I took out everything else. And just in this example, I wanted it to get thick down below. So I cut out all the ironwood, cut out some of the smaller trees, and then it also allows, when you do that, especially if you kill them, you got your white oak here, and your other desirables, the walnuts and the red oak, allows that to seed down and create your new trees of the future right there. So here's my last upland shot of the day. You can see some thinning. Those are shagbarks. Thin those out. Decent tree, but not compared to an oak or a walnut. But I'll thin them out. And then when they're competing with the white oaks and the reds, I'll prefer the white oak and the reds. And right in front of us there, the two larger trees. The one on the right's a red oak. The one on the left is a white oak. And you can see they've kind of formed their mature canopies. Are not going to respond to a whole lot, but it's thicker than most people would want it in here right now. Definitely hard to learn all your species and figure all this out, so you really got to spend a lot of years doing this stuff. These are some pretty long-term decisions here. You can see that red oak. So that's a red oak next to some whites that really doesn't need to go. But the hickory that's crowding it sure does. And just for the fun of it, I release that cherry over there. And some little white oaks that might not do much. This is probably more what I would call weed tree removal, where it's filled with good walnuts and we're trying to get all the garbage out. And I pretty much removed the stuff I didn't like. That's ash. And I chose the walnuts. Here's why you got to know what you're doing. This is an ash tree. Looks a lot like a walnut. And you can see after I thin this out, cut a trail through there, you can see I got rid of a lot of that ironwood next to a lot of the white oaks, just so some white oaks could maybe start popping up there. Really nice walnut. Killed the junk next to it. And then I can funnel the deer where I want them. And actually, I have a tree stand over there. So it's pretty handy. And I try not to cut too close to the tree stand, because I don't want to be canopied up there. And that one's a little iffy. And I like them high too. But I've got some big, beautiful walnuts for cover all around me. And this is an ideal bottom. Freeing these up, timber value in the future, unbelievable. If you let these get to maturity, which a veneer tree, I try and do 27, 28, 29 inches DBH. Get somebody in there that knows what they're doing, that knows their trees though. This is just a little experiment for the future. Got a lot of nice mature white oaks up there. You can see that wolf white oak in the background. And the whole floor was just covered with ironwood. And they actually killed pretty easy. So I just opened it up, killed that stuff off, and let these great big white oaks do their thing. And some walnuts. But sure makes a lot of cover. Really nice. Straight walnuts. And you definitely have to cut some trails through there, because it blocks a lot of stuff. But they sure know how to funnel. Right here is the middle of a forest. And it really doesn't look like it, because I took this spot and just opened it up. And it's only April, so things haven't really started growing. Finished the winter and it matted a lot of stuff down, but I mean, this stuff gets over your head. A lot of browse, a lot of bedding, and then you're freeing up those crop trees. But they bed in here like crazy. A lot of food for them. And then your timber value, again, great land. So I do all the marking myself, and this is a couple years old. I usually do most of the cutting myself, but if I get some help, I put X's on things. So you really can't make a mistake. I put one on each side of the tree, and then I put a band on the crop tree. It's a lot more work, but it makes sure you're doing things correctly and not cutting the wrong trees. And unless I'm doing the cutting, I'm always concerned about that, which usually I do, but not always. So the X's do really help. Right here we're on the riverbank, of course, where the walnuts like to grow, and you get a few of them on the edge like that. Definitely makes me nervous, but you watch those. But those are all walnuts. So I'm real careful watching some of the big ones on the bank. If they look like they're gonna go, time to take them. I think those will be fine till maturity. They're in there far enough, but there's a few that aren't gonna make it. But that's all walnuts, cleaned up. All the vines gone, all the junk out of there, killed, and just enough space so they can get full canopies up there, or close to it. Perfect example of what we want to see. We got a walnut back there, and then we've killed every bit of junk around it. that was messing with the canopy. So now that rascal can keep growing and have no competition. So here's the next phase, and that's some of the fields and some of the areas I want to have orchards in later, nursery. I've got about 6,000 apple and pear trees. I'm going to grow to about 5 or 6 years old, which is a ridiculous amount of work, a little overwhelming, but high fenced, watered, babied, and grown in a root maker bag. So they do really well, and they'll be probably 4 to 5 inches in diameter. And just the fact of how I grow them and how they're babied will probably be the equivalent of growing something about 10 years in the wild. But they should be producing right when I take them out and plant them. And 6,000 in an 11-acre high fence, it's a lot of work, but it's fun. So you can see that in the background. About 10 varieties of apple, 5 pear, crabapple, persimmon, chestnut, and I went for a lot of disease-resistant varieties, later dropping, some early, and the right rootstock. So a lot of work, a lot of fun.